You see what my computer's trying to do? Stressed out. So let's just go and start. All right, so in chapter 3, we get into some of that.
Why can I not see it on the thing?
Like in the live version, or
Um,
you're saying because it's not attached here? Like, see how
it's
it's
not attached to social.
correct.
Like, social thing.
It's still trying to attach.
Oh.
Yeah, it's definitely stressed out. All the reasons to not miss a class. So we are live, and it does look to be picking it up. So in social work, we look at ideas from what's called the ecosystems perspective. And the reason we do that is because it's a holistic look at things. So ecological theory is looking at all the different systems. So like, think of where you grew up, and then the school you went to, and then you might have a church nearby, and then like the playground, and then like the shopping center, and how far away your parents work. Did you guys have parents driving? Hello. Your parents drive far into work? They get to do it remote. I had to drive an hour and 11 today. So it's about 122 miles every day to and from here. But most people live close to their work, I guess. You know, like as long as gas prices have been cheap. They're not cheap today. But in social work, we kind of look at the holistic system, subsystems like the environment you grew up in. When you get a client as a social worker, you want to look at both the person and the environment and like the goodness of fit. Like some would say me driving an hour and 11 minutes is too far. I agree. At the same time, because less and less people are going to college nowadays, there's not as many college jobs open, you know what I mean, to practice teaching in the university level. Like I feel like college enrollment, it went up for years. In the past year, it's going back down just because it's expensive. Maybe now that we had student loans forgiven yesterday at the rate of $10,000, people will start coming back to college. I don't know. We'll see. And then you look at the goodness of fit. So, and we look at everything in the system. So when we get a new client as a social worker, we're going to look at different things that they're dealing with. We help them select, organize, analyze, synthesize, utilize. We look at their outputs, so the outcomes of energy exchange. I know these are all big words and statements to explain, like, what do you do throughout the day? Like, how long do you spend in class? How long do you spend at work? How long do you spend in social activities? How long are you at sports if you do that, church if you do that, things of that nature. And then also, while you're there, your attitude, behaviors, and your role performance, energy and information exported into the different systems. So, like, how much energy do I give? And when I was failing out of college, it was important for me to look at how much energy did I spend throughout the week on what was important to me. And, you know, that important to me was an important thing because all I really cared about then was like having fun, survival, and even partying, you know, like I'm going to go out and enjoy because I'm an adult now. But then I failed out of school. So like if someone comes to you as a social worker and one of their issues is they're failing out of school, you don't get to keep your student loans when you fail out. So then you don't have money to pay rent and buy food. So that could be one thing that you look at. If it's a homeless person with a family because of coronavirus and they laid everybody off, that's another thing to look at. Like, is it our whole system in general, or is it your behavior that's like causing the suffering and homelessness? I remember during COVID, they had long food lines everywhere, and like the grocery stores were. What's that? Yeah, it was like creepy. They were like showing people in hazmat suits and like,
Oh, yeah, they was doing extra stuff.
I think so. It was a little extra, and then they had a lot of layoffs, some food shortages. It was like all over the world too, which was interesting. It was just like everywhere. So then we got our feedback, response evaluation adjustment. We saw that coronavirus was not as bad as we were saying it was. It was interesting. Like, did you guys remember? Like, they said, don't even, like, your mail, you have to disinfect it and spray it down with Lysol. Like, I have parents in their 70s, so they were a little bit scared of COVID, like they're going to die from it. Then more information was coming back out, and we had an adjustment to how we handled it. We're like, it might actually make you sick for like a week or two, and then I did have relatives die, so I don't want to speak too soon. My mom got it and survived it. Did you guys have anyone die of COVID? They said it was COVID that made them pass. So most of us survived it. Yeah, did you have a?
One of my aunts died from a stroke, though. Her death certificate said
Oh, yeah, so they were doing.
COVID. Statistics.
I feel like that a lot of that was done.
Why would they do it?
What's that?
I said, why would they do it?
Good question. So, we got Jalen Amos in here. So yeah, a lot of us, after we got feedback, response, evaluation, we're like, why would they call it COVID and it was a stroke? You know what I mean? Or was that the first year, or was that like 2021? Did she get the vaccine too and then caught COVID? As some people, they're showing, there's so much information coming out, it's hard to analyze it. I don't even know. But
The symptoms too close to a code.
what'd you say?
I said the symptoms too close to a code.
Right. You mean like your after effects of getting vaccinated or whatnot. So I think here we still can do a religious exemption. Like if you didn't want to get it, you just send them your religious exemption. Have you guys heard that? Is it still mandatory to get it?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. It was last year.
It was mandatory like for certain jobs and that you wanted to do certain stuff.
Like here.
I don't know.
Or you're saying if you went and worked somewhere else, like,
Right. Where in Cleveland it was mandatory for certain stuff.
right.
Here I don't know.
Yeah, so we had it mandatory last year. Again, they saw the response evaluation adjustment. They saw maybe the vaccine was only working 10 or 15% of the time. So they're like, you know what? We're not going to force it. It's lowering enrollment. It's lowering, like the number of people that want to come here. So again, you're looking at the whole ecological perspective. Then you get more info, input, energy movement within the system, energy and information imported from component and environmental systems. Again, I know these are like big words and confusing, but COVID's a good example of like how people suffered and were laid off and became homeless or had food insecurity. And that's what the ecological system does, is you look at the whole picture, not just like he's homeless and doesn't have food because he's lazy. It's like, no, what's really going on? There's less jobs because people had to do remote stuff, and those who couldn't do it remote just you don't have money to pay rent, etc. So this is what that looks like, what we were talking about: human system transactions, input, processing, output, feedback. So I feel like last year they said if you don't get vaccinated, you're an idiot, right? Like that's kind of the big plan. Now lately they're saying actually natural immunity is okay. Like if you caught it and you got sick with it, your immune system will be able to fight it. So it's okay. But a year ago they're like, no, even if you caught it, you got to get vaccinated. So they are looking at input, processing, output, feedback. Like we can actually do something different. So this is all chapter 3. I'm going to try to have some videos along with this because it makes more sense. We got Antonio Paris and Aaliyah Willis here. So the implications for social work. Again, it's like regard for environmental context of human functioning. So you're looking at the whole environment. Hello, how are you? You consider the problems and solutions in multiple systems. You understand change in one system affects interrelated systems. So another example of that, I'm going to use coronavirus. We sometimes get sick of that example, but remember, because everyone was laid off, they sent us those stimmy checks. I don't know if you guys were old enough to get any of those, but your parents probably got one for you. So like every kid, you get $500, and then each parent got $1,200. I think.
I got you.
Were you 18?
No.
Huh? How did that work? Were you working and paying taxes? That's why. Where were you working at? Did they have layoffs during COVID?
No, but they were offering $100 if you got vaccinated.
Right, which sounds exciting. I would have said, hell no.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so I get paid $100 for what? It's kind of weird is whenever like they're pushing something like that, it makes me wonder, why are they pushing it so hard? Have you guys seen the Tuskegee Airmen or the videos on what's called the Tuskegee Airmen? Do you know what the Tuskegee Airmen are? All right, so that's the video I'm going to start with. Have you guys heard of like the social justice implications of Tuskegee Airmen? Let's see if I can get it to. Oh, I forgot I'm still uploading all of your PowerPoints here. I'll do a different web browser. So Tuskegee Airmen explanation. Anybody want to try to take a stab at it?
What was it?
The airmen from Tuskegee.
I just know.
It's a big deal in America. Here's one of the videos, and really, in my opinion, some of the injustices that came from it. Maybe I have to use some keywords with the search when you do the searches. Oh, they even made a movie about it. So I'm only bringing this up because since these guys, we've had something called, after World War II, they said you cannot force a medical intervention on any human in the world. Like it's a choice. If you do want to get vaccinated, that's fine. But if you choose not to, that's okay too. But these guys were the start of ethics in social work and
deemed by the War Department as inferior to whites and unable to handle the intricacies of modern weaponry.
See if I can get it to play for you. Big screen.
Black soldiers were relegated to support roles. Flying fighter planes was out of the question.
It was thought over the objective of Hap Arnold, who was in charge of the Air Force at the time, that blacks didn't have the ability to do complicated things, the leadership, etc. We knew that was wrong.
Under pressure from the black press, the NAACP, and even his own wife, President Roosevelt written in 1909 and ordered the civilian training program to be open to black students who wished to become civilian pilots. In December of 1940, the War Department followed suit and appropriated $1 million to build a suitable base to train black airmen at the Tuskegee Institute in Alabama.
So is this kind of your understanding of what Tuskegee Airmen was? Anybody else? I feel like I missed one other key word. Do you know who the Tuskegee Airmen are?
Yeah, I know them.
This is what I wanted specifically. Okay, this one is.
Is he blind?
It's possible, like with the cataracts in his eyes.
Yeah.
It looks like he has cataracts, which my parents got. I was explaining it's like your eyes after so much time, it's like a bunch of bugs on it, and eventually you try to like look through the sun coming in your windshield with all the bugs on, and you have to have the lens replaced. So it does make you pretty blind. My dad actually had that operation, and then the next day, one of his eyes went out. So he only has one left. He's 77, and that was kind of messed up. All right, so look, these are actually side by side. So I'm bringing this up because of the COVID vaccine, and it is now a choice. I think last year it was, and it was mandatory for all students to get it, but we could do like a religious exemption. but they're relating the Tuskegee study to the vaccine skepticism from the syphilis study. So here's what happened with the Tuskegee Airmen that was a major injustice, and the Department of
They were told they'd get treated for their bad blood. Instead, hundreds of pro-black men became participants unknowingly in a shocking and truly shameful chapter of American medical history. In 1932, the United States Public Health Service launched an unethical research project to examine the effects of untreated syphilis. The project was called the Tuskegee Study because it recruited 600 living in Tuskegee, Alabama. Researchers told the men that they were being treated for bad blood, a term used locally to describe anything from fatigue to anemia. Promised the men free medical treatment if they participated. While 2/3 of the men in the study were confirmed to have syphilis, not one received proper treatment for the disease they had contracted.
So this was a study in which there was no consent on the part of those who were being studied. Also deception on the part of the U.S. government who were being studied. Also deception on the part of the U.S. government.
When penicillin became recommended treatment for syphilis in the 1940s, Tuskegee researchers scandalously drugged from the men in the study so that they could continue to chart the course of the disease, experience damage to their vital organs and nervous systems. And for some, the lack of treatment led to death.
The great shame of the study is that the men thought that they were being treated. Treatment was withheld from them even after it was very clear what kind of medical treatment would cure them of syphilis.
In 1972, an Associated Press article exposed the Tuskegee study after one of the participants brought the story to a civil rights attorney. Only then, after 40 years, was the study brought to an end. The case was settled out of court for $10 million.
This long history of medical experimentation on African Americans creates a sense of distrust. A distrust of doctors and physicians, a distrust of medical care.
In 1997, President Bill Clinton formally apologized to the victims of the study. The president's apology was a welcome first step, but we still have a long way to go before the legacy of mistrust of science within the Black community is fully overcome.
So I know that's a quick, brief synopsis of explaining the Tuskegee study. There was a few others that were actually pretty good. And it gets into, so this is kind of our introduction as to why in the next paper we look at our code of ethics. Why is there a code of ethics in social work? Why do we have ethics when research is done? Why do we have human informed consent? Why as a social worker it's voluntary? Somebody comes to us voluntary, ideally, because counseling is voluntary. Not that you can't be court ordered, but some courts explain, like if you are court ordered, it could be you choose the counseling or you choose the jail time. And some people do choose the jail time, like if it is something that's not going to be very long. So Tuskegee Airmen, you guys can find a lot of stuff on that. And kind of cruising through some of this stuff on the ecological factors. So we were kind of going through why as social workers we look at the whole system when things are going down. Like if in 2020 I just looked at a problem with homelessness because of job layoffs, I would think that maybe the person who was homeless just wasn't working and might have been lazy, and it was actually a bigger problem of the system. Like if you guys remember, we all had to go remote, I guess, if you were at Kroger, so you didn't have to go remote because grocery stores stayed open, stuff like that. But when we receive a client as a social worker, we want to look at the whole ecological, holistic perspective. What's that?
No, I asked if they were still giving out hours when he was working.
Oh, do they cut back the hours? because it was busy, right? That was like the only place you get food. I don't think that restaurants were much open except carry out and DoorDash. So,
Yeah, I don't think it was like that.
but you probably got the stimmy check because you were paying taxes. Like if you paid taxes the year before, you got that stimmy check direct deposited in your account. One day you were like, oh dang, there's $1,000. What? I put it into a cryptocurrency and it crashed 80%. That was probably the dumbest thing I ever did with the stimmy check. Remember when cryptos were like the all big thing? Like you're going to make all kinds of money and do the cryptocurrencies. It never really hashed out. So, any questions about the Tuskegee study or ethics in general, or don't they have a movie now about the Tuskegee Airmen? It's like a Hollywood produced film that was made. I thought that they do. But essentially, in 1945, we found out that penicillin killed syphilis. And syphilis can make you go like crazy, like you go crazy in the head. As a STDs, like Al Capone died of it because he was in prison and never got treatment. He was one of the gangsters that died of it. Things of that nature that were challenged. So
What, how did Al Capone die?
he died of like the after effect of syphilis.
Syphilis is an STD.
I'm pretty sure syphilis is an STD.
Yeah.
But it'd be treated with an antibiotic. It's like that easy that. There it is. Okay. Maybe,
He was a mafia, right?
right.
Yeah.
So he probably had a few call girls and maybe one had, and it could be treated for real with a simple antibiotic, which is kind of nuts.
How come he didn't get it when he was in prison?
They probably wanted him to die.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? That's a good question. I mean, that's some of the stuff that comes up, and but that whole study. So the whole point of the Tuskegee Airmen study and why there's that vaccine hesitancy or reluctance from the government is because they were telling these men in Tuskegee, Alabama, we're treating you for syphilis. Or in fact, they weren't. They're like, they knew antibiotics would kill it by 45, and they let some dudes drag out the study through 50s, 60s, and they didn't end it until 71. So that was the dishonesty. And why I was saying, it feels like every time the government is pushing something, it makes you question why they're pushing it. So, what's that? Right. So even like the STEMI checks, the student loans, and I'll even speak on this because I'm being forgiven some of those student loans. I don't remember if I was Pell Grant eligible, but yesterday they announced that they're going to forgive 10 grand in student loans. Do you guys know any of the details of that? Anybody take out student loans here? I took out a lot. I took out maybe for this year.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. That's what I was wondering. If like you have a current student loan, my wife does. She's finishing up here online. Will that be forgiven? Or do you have to be done with school to be forgiven? You know what I mean?
I hope it's not.
I know.
I think it is. You have to be done.
That's what I'm wondering. Like, do you have to
I
be?
don't really see like a link to site, see the word by word detail or anything, but I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Because it's probably also like 800 pages or something, right? I am going to force quit this one as I was trying to send you all the PowerPoint for today and it crashed. I tried. I promise. I tried. Do you guys still get online access to the books or a physical book if you want it? I hear they'll give you one if you like go to the bookstore, if it's an in-person class. Now, if it's an online class, they only give you online books. Are they? And some people like that better. So this chapter, though, covering as a social worker, we want to look at the holistic, like all the things that could affect you from your job, to school, to money systems, to the federal government, the local government, the state government, city government, and I get whatever else governments there are, even school government. We have a school governing board here. So stressors create barriers and problems in social functioning. And this is, again, why we start here with social work. Some examples are poverty, poor health, inadequate education, or architectural barriers. Or could cause like a stressor. I almost want to search the statement. What do you think of that architectural barriers at the end? That's the one that I'd want to search. Like, how do architectural barriers cause a problem with functioning? Which I feel like that would be building. Interesting. Here's a quick. It's a little bit old, but effects of poverty on society. So we've had a lot of research done from child poverty to the effects of poverty and violence. And then they even have a video for you, but I can't tell you where it is. See if it'll play for us. So anybody familiar with the different poverties that we have? Here you go. This is what we're looking for.
Our first assignment, when is it due again? Paper, right?
Not
When is it due again? Paper, right?
not until September 1st, I think.
Next Saturday?
So it's coming fast. Next month, but it's next week. And
I don't know why, a lot of my first assignments have been like papers.
in social work, that's mostly what we have. If you guys were math majors and science, they do more multiple choices. And it's because when we see clients, we usually like write up a note about them afterwards. So they want to make sure that we're writing. I was the worst writer in undergraduate, so I had a hard time. You know, I didn't have the best of grades. What's that? Yeah. Have you ever used the Writing Center? That's the one saving grace I found. So if you bring your paper to our Writing Center, they'll look it over for you before you turn it in. That saved my butt. So here's 2 minutes on poverty.
The world has made tremendous progress in reducing extreme poverty. But this progress has slowed down and is uneven. If this trend continues, the world will not be able to end extreme poverty by 2030. However, the extreme poverty picture shows an emerging divergence. While extreme poverty is still stubborn in some low-income countries, several others have made rapid strides in moving people out of extreme poverty. But that doesn't mean poverty is completely eradicated in those cases. That means to make poverty history, we can't only rely on historical ways of measuring poverty. We are introducing higher standards for a growing world. Also, as countries grow, their outlooks of what constitutes basic needs vary. While in one country you may need just clothing and food to find work, in another you may need a cell phone, a car, and access to internet in addition to food and clothing. Introducing a societal poverty line that combines extreme poverty, which is fixed, and a relative dimension of well-being that differs from country to country. But poverty isn't all about money. To get a full picture, we need to understand that deprivation comes in many forms and use a new multidimensional measure that not only considers income, but also education, electricity, water, and sanitation. Finally, to expand how resources are shared. Globally, 104 women live in poor households for every 100 men. However, to know how many women are poor, we need to know how resources are shared within households. This requires more investments in survey research.
Why do you guys think women are more likely to be in poverty than I just saw that stat come up. So 104 women are in poverty compared to 100 men. It's not far off. It's not that askew, but it's skewed enough. Why are
So
women?
why they poverty?
It could be, yeah, yeah.
Maybe,
Like if-
maybe like it's more expensive to be a female compared to the male stuff.
Possibly. Yeah, because maybe they get pregnant and then they break up. Go ahead. That's true, yeah. So like if it was physical muscle digging, whereas some jobs would be like challenging historically based on the Olympics or something. I could see that. Okay. Somebody else had their hand up.
I did, but that's
Okay. Yeah, so that's something to consider. And something that we'll look into more also. Women do have the ability to conceive children. We don't. I think in 2022, they are defining like men can have children if you identify as a man. So that's kind of where they're going with that. But like the muscle tone and like testosterone and like historically in the Olympics, I think the world records are, they do say women have a better ability to endure pain than men do, mainly because of childbirth, and they're more flexible than men. So that's like two of the things. I just saw that stat come up, so I wanted to kind of throw it out there for a second. I cut it off.
It is possible to strive well in which all regions, countries, households, and people experience the benefits of poverty reduction. For that, we need to piece together the poverty puzzle to understand its full impacts.
Also, this kind of got the answer for me in my mind about architectural causes of poverty. So they said in one country you need just food and clothing, you can go work. Some countries you need a car, a phone, something else, and something else. Any of you guys been to a third world country before ever, like India, Mexico? Yeah. Did you see poverty there?
Well, yeah. Me and my mom, we had took like a trip to Belize on the cruise.
Oh, yeah.
And,
So they're selling stuff a lot of times, right?
yeah, we did this excursion, and we saw like the actual like the real life people, and then we saw the orange trees that the Florida's natural use,
Oh, yeah.
and then
Was it a big plantation of trees? Oh,
yeah,
damn.
and it had a whole bunch of workers on it. And yeah, there was just like little homeless children.
Right.
Yeah.
And the ones come at you for money, like, un beso, por favor. Un beso, por favor. I lived in Central America for many years, and it is tough. Here, we probably could get some jobs if you have food and water and shelter and clothing, but we're so spread out, you need a car to get to it. You know what I mean? Like, and if you don't have a cell phone to communicate or something like that. But then furthermore, the cheap electricity. So yesterday a stat came out that electric has gone up 30 to 40% this year. I didn't know that. Like I always thought it was 10 cents a kilowatt. And I looked and it does say in Ohio it's about 13 cents a kilowatt. So that would be like to charge my car. I think it is 60 kilowatts. Here, what is 60 times 13?
60 times 13 is 780.
So 780 cents to drive up here and back, like when I drive electrically. If you did that in gas, though, don't you get like 30 miles per gallon and you got to buy $3 a gallon gas? So it would be like $15 to drive up here to teach and then back home. So it's a big difference. I put solar panels on my roof, but those are also expensive. So there's just like different things that kind of separate. When you go to third world countries, you see they don't have the cheap gas and cheap oil that we have. Even though it's expensive for us today, I hear in Europe it's $12 a gallon just for 1 gallon of gasoline. And that's been for a while, yeah. But here we get it like subsidized. What's that? So many people don't have a car. There's like no way on earth I could have a car. I would be walking. I'd be like the fittest person you ever seen in my life. So yeah, we consider poverty. We consider some of those things. And those are the stuff we address as social workers. We want to do like really unique ways of serving folks with that. So other environmental enrichments augment social functioning, enhance well-being. So an example is like adequate housing. If you like good housing with heating and cooling, so you sleep well, you're rested and can go to work and perform. If you don't have, heating and cooling, you're cold all night in the winter or hot all day, and you're just more tired because you don't have like 72 degrees. Also, job opportunities, access to try to look at the whole system as social workers. Micro interventions are like one-on-one. So most people do like counseling one-on-one. We also have macro, which is like government and like advocating that people get health care. And we also have meso, so like doing group work as social workers, like trying to help run a DUI group or run a meso, so like doing group work as social workers, like trying to help run a DUI group or run a intervention group. And here's kind of what that looks like. So you want your social, as a social worker, you want your work you do to cut across all of these, from individuals to groups to communities to society. And like, how does it help the whole entire system? And that's kind of what we're looking at. Again, I know these are big words on some of these for something that could be explained, I feel like, a little bit easier and better. But here's some of the stuff we also look at. Determinants of social functioning for individuals and families. So you've got genetics, that's what you're born with. We can't really control that. Nutrition, similarly, mental health also you're a lot of times born with. Health, coping capacity, these are all the areas we look at when like a person comes to us for help. Prenatal health, developmental disability, disabling condition, personality, life experience, self-concept, age, your cultural heritage, which developmental stage are you in? Like, are you a kid and you can't fend for yourself and that's why you need child protective services? Are you an adult? Also, even like, so that's personal. And then this is on family and small groups. Like, how big is your family? The unity of your family? What are the rules in your family or group you live in? Values, natural support systems. How is the communication there? How's the relationship pattern? Socioeconomic level, I'd say that's probably one of the biggest. They kind of put it over here in the corner. So everything we look at from micro level social work, this is meso, which is in the middle. So work with formal groups and complex organizations. Some of the issues are like group or organizational functioning, patterns of decision making, and then styles. And again, here's like the stuff as a group you deal with. So bureaucracy, the governance, group cohesion, all the stuff that affect you. Why is it that government is such a big deal in like how you guys live the way that you live? Why do we need government? Why do we need, people to make decisions for us? Can't we make our own? Or should we have democracy? Or should it be communism or a dictatorship? You know what I mean? There's so many forms of government all over the world still. We live in, I guess, what is called I know they say it's a democracy, but I've heard something else called, it's like a constitutional republic. Have you guys ever heard that one before? So democracy is where you do vote for who's in power, if it's not like a skewed election or whatever. I guess constitutional republic is similar, but the Constitution is kind of the document that governs us here in the US. Other places have different things governing them. And that's where the macro level social work comes in. So like neighborhood, you could have a neighborhood government, like city government, communities or societies. Some of the activities are community organizing, economic development, legislative action, policy foundation. and some of the things that you struggle with or can do okay with. The determinants of social function is just straight out of your book for societies and world community. Like, how's the housing in your area? Have you guys ever looked up home prices recently? Expensive? It seems like it. Which cities are you guys from? I know you've told me, but I didn't memorize it. Columbus? How much are they up there?
What?
Housing prices. Like, have you ever gone on Zillow? What is the
Well, I know the neighborhood my mom lives in, or I guess my hometown neighborhood. The houses start from like 550,000 and up.
was 6?
005.
Skip this question. One interesting thing is like looking at the range over the past. I don't know if you guys have ever gone here. This is a really good example of inflation. So, like if you,
Those are like really, really nice. Yeah.
which they probably do, but like I always look at this, like what did it sell? It was at 300 and it went up by 28%. That is insane. As none of us got a 28% raise. Like our teachers union, we got a 2% raise this year. 2%. So like if you're making 50,000 this year, you make 51. So housing went up a lot. And then even here from 2020, it was 268 and it went up 11%. So in 2 years alone, that's like, it's almost not doubled, but it sure seems like close to it. You know what I mean? I'll see if I can find another that's more affordable. Anybody else code you want? I could do the one, like the neighborhood I was born in, 45213, and where I just sold my house in, which is weird. So this is Kennedy Heights. In fact, let's go with this one. I bet you this was 100,000 10 years ago. It was built in 1913. A lot of houses are 100 years old. It's like shocking, but yeah, most, especially inner city. So like if you're inner city Cincinnati, we have some that are 1890. I'll do one of, I know, right. So I own 2 of them. I owned one that was built around here. I actually probably could sign it. Look, it was 184 in like 12, 14 years ago. It was that cheap. And it's like doubled. So actually, here is the one that just sold. A few left in, and it's a good example of how expensive everything has gotten. I was right on here. I bought it for like 155. Is that it? Nope, it's this one. Okay. Damn, I only sold it 3 years ago. So here's my little old house. It was built in probably 1913. And it had some messes because of it. And I looked at the history and it was built in 1928. So it's almost 100 years old. But it was complete price history. It was actually 23,000 in 2009. Somebody told me like it had caught on fire, so they had to rehab it. Then they put it up for sale for 120 again. I bought it for, I guess I did buy it for 159. I thought it was only 155. And then, I did buy it for 155. Never mind. There it is. And then I sold it just 3 years later. And I was like, what? Like, why is it selling for this much? Well, then when I went to buy another new house, I saw why immediately. I could not find anything. I think we ended up selling it for 209. Where is that? Yep. So I found something for 206, but it still cost me $1,000 a month. You know what I mean? It's still like paying rent. What's one of your all zip codes, just for an example of inflation that you came from, if you're willing to share? Mm-hmm.
44106.
just to see if you saw that. I hear housing is the best way to show this inflation. So similar prices to like, what city is it? Cleveland? Okay. And probably that looks like a 100-year-old house, doesn't it? 1920. And then, yeah, just looking at like literally 10 years ago that they were selling for $150,000. It actually, here's the chart too. So it was like, about, it bottomed here for some reason, 105, and then now they got it for sale at 450. So that just shows, like, we've been talking about how they printed money and gave it out as everybody lost their job. It was fun when we got all that money. Like when you got that $1,000, you're like, heck yes. Like, this was the picture I gave to somebody who got the student loan forgiveness yesterday. I don't know if I can search it that easily, but you know, like kind of, I guess that's Al Capone too, but just like the money that was exciting, but the damage that it caused. So like 2 years ago, this house sold for 119 or 105, and then someone fixed it up, and now they're selling it for $500,000 in Cleveland. Do you know where this one would be? I guess they have them all over. So, do you?
Yeah.
Which one?
48532.
Looking like the, so do you guys know what the average home sells for in America? I've heard it was about this right here, which is crazy because do you know how much that would be per month if you bought it right now? That's a lot more than what like rents are. I could see why people rent for $1,200 or $1,500 because let's see if somebody sold this house in 2009. So yeah, if you ever get bored and look at home prices, do you guys all rent or live in the dorms or?
I live in a dorm. Yeah.
See what that was? 9 years ago, somebody bought it for $42,000. Now it's listed for sale at $337,000. That's like 10 times. Yeah. What's that?
I remember
I hope so. Let's see. There you
my
go.
grandma built a house in this neighborhood.
Okay.
And I want to say she spent like 50 grand, I think,
Right.
building the house.
Right.
And then we moved in 2009, and she got a lot of money for it.
Right. Yeah. So again, exciting, but it's like kind of this inflation that's happened. You know, I like to bring it on home, real life situations. Why are we all having a hard time paying for crap? The housing bubble is a big part of that. So like we had low interest rates. Let's see if this remembers my sign in, because I'll show you guys like one last one. I know they always do it with Facebook. It's always easiest with Facebook or Google. And then, yeah, let's just do mine. Oh, I'm in, I thought I was in Google Chrome. So one last one, 41076. I bought this one for $100,000 in 2005 because that was all I could afford. I feel like nowadays that's all what most people can afford. And it was in Bunning Lane in Cold Spring, Kentucky. As I was teaching at NKU, like I was finishing up my doctoral program and there's Bunning. So same problem with this one. I had to buy this for $105. When I sold it, it was like $150, and I bought that house in the neighborhood I grew up in for $155. When I bought this for $110, I put solar panels all up over it also. I don't even know if they kept the pictures. So I was trying to sell those with it and sell everything. Dude didn't want the solar panel, so he bought it for 140. But I had to buy the same price of house for what I sold it for. So bought this for 100, bought and sold for 150. So I've always got the same size home. Now it's 206, and I saw this year if I sold my house, it's $300,000. Like, how much do you guys pay for rent? Those who rent? Anybody? How much are the dorms? Like $4,000 a semester. It includes food. So that's, again, when we're like, answer it, but it's like, all right, so where's the income source? What do you have per month? How much goes to housing? How much goes to food? And how much goes here, there, and everywhere? And how do we promote a just society? You know what I mean? Ultimately, like that's the big question, working with the social work profession. How do we renew and refine the profession? How do we promote a just society? Here, well, at every undergraduate program, you're taught what's called generalist model. It's about issues rather than methods, simultaneous interventions at multiple system levels, employ a variety of models, address diverse client problems, and apply a wide range of settings. Apply to a wide range of settings. So we're going to look at, the food crisis, the student loans. So that's your headline today. What people are struggling with, and how we can like live well. So any questions on any of that? That's kind of. Let's try it again. I'll just send you one. Because when I tried to send you all the chapters at once, it said, nope. So here it is. See, it does one well. I was excited to send every single one to you guys. So any questions about your paper, about school in general? How are your other classes going? Any terrible ones? Everything you share is confidential. I'm not going to go tell another teacher or anything. Like, are they not terrible? It is always the first 2 or 3 weeks is like the bomb because there ain't nothing to do. It's like suit up, show up, and then September 23rd. I know.
You said what?
Midterm grades.
Or what?
That's next month.
September 23rd. They do 2 of them here. It's so weird. So they'll have September, October. Yeah. I know. And it really is just to like keep folks accountable. You know what I mean? Like if you're just not showing up or doing anything, it's like, dude, you got an F, do your work. And luckily you can turn it around. You know, that's why they do 2, no time to turn it around. I do like, it's more work for us, but like you get little notifications throughout the semester if you do it. So is everyone in here? I know you're not a freshman because you've told me. Is everybody else a freshman? And you're a sophomore. Everybody in the back row is a freshman. That sounds right. I like the coffee bar lounge room though. It's like they got lounge chairs. They have anywhere you can put your feet up. So no questions about that or the first assignment. You guys should have gotten an announcement for that PowerPoint. Did that finally go through?
Yeah.
Yay. They wouldn't let me send all of them like I was trying, but I got to send you that one. You got your assignments. You got some free time to do it. I'm done. You're welcome to ask any questions you